Legal advice might not be the most exciting subject, but it sure is an important one. And because we know for a lot of you ALUXers, one of your biggest interests is achieving your business dreams. Whether that's starting your own company or working as a freelancer, we've decided to look at the most valuable pieces of legal advice for people starting out in the business world. Keep these tips in mind from the start and you'll save yourself headaches and possibly much worse down the line. So let's get straight to it and look at our 10 most valuable pieces of advice for business success. Welcome to alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. If you're not subscribed yet, you're missing out. Number 1. Don't break the law. ALUXers, we have the greatest trust and respect for all of you in the ALUX community, and we're confident we don't have to give you advice like don't sell drugs or don't commit internet fraud, because we know you know better than that. But we also realize when you're in business, especially when you're starting out, there are times you can be tempted to think you can bend the rules a little or cut a few corners, and just assume you'll get away with it. Well, in this case, it needs spelling out. Our first piece of advice is do not break the law. Be sure everything you do is by the book. Take a lesson from Virgin founder Richard Branson. When he started his record business, he was caught selling records illegally and breaking tax laws. He didn't just get away with a fine. He spent a night in jail and was bailed out by his family. They even had to remortgage their house to pay his bail. Of course, since then, Richard Branson's come a long way. He founded an airline and is now giving space tourism a liftoff. In fact, in Britain, he is so respected there, he's called Sir Richard. Nowadays, he's more than happy to tell the story of how he once had a brush with the law, and always follows it up with some firm advice: don't break it. Number 2. Before you do anything else, hire a lawyer. The reason you want to go into business is because you want to focus on delivering what you're good at. You want to maximize the time you spend on the business side of things, not worrying about complex legal issues. But we've got some news for you. Whatever your line of business is, there's going to be legal issues you'll have to deal with. To ensure you don't have to spend time on them, find a lawyer who will. They'll have in-depth knowledge of how the legal system works and how to operate within it. And they'll understand legalese. That means often confusing legal language you'll find in contracts and other legal documents. And that's why you'll want to consult a lawyer well before you start a business. You'll need to ask them questions like, can I use this amazing name I've thought up for the company, or has someone else already taken it? What kind of company should I register as? An LLC, an S corporation, or some other complicated term I don't fully understand? And of course, how will taxes work and how much will I have to pay? There's a load of other questions just like these we'll touch on later in the video, and unless you're a legal expert, it'll be a minefield figuring out the answers yourself. That's why you'll need a lawyer on your side. Also, remember that different lawyers are specialized in different business areas. Find one that is relevant to you. If you're a tech startup, find a lawyer that's specialized in tech startups. If you'll be doing a lot of international sales, find a lawyer experienced in international trade. Yes, you will have to pay for their services, and yes, we know that when you're starting out, you've got so many expenses that you really don't think you can handle one more. But the truth is, paying for a good lawyer is an expense you can't afford to skip. Number 3. Protect your intellectual property. In the past, most of the value of companies was in their tangible assets, things like real estate and machinery. Nowadays, intangible assets tend to be more important. That means things like code and algorithms, logos and brand names, things we've created like text, photos, or even music. Be sure to protect these from the start, so nobody can use them without your permission, just like you would protect the title to your house or other tangible property you own. If you've invested in something, file a patent for it. Even if you've designed something that isn't strictly an invention, like an app, you should be able to get a design patent for it. Logos and brand names are covered by trademarks. Things you've created like photos, texts, and music all fall under the category of copyright. In most countries, you don't have to file for copyright. It applies as soon as you create it, but there are steps you can take to prove it's your creation and not somebody else's. All of these are covered by IP law, or intellectual property law, and of course, the rules vary a little from country to country. So put IP up high on your list of things to ask your lawyer about. If you don't, you'll be letting other people profit from your hard work and damaging your own business in the process. Number 4, make sure your website complies with the law. Assuming your business is going to be using a website, and we think that's a fair assumption, make sure it complies with the law. Usually the biggest thing to think about is data protection law. You know, when you open a website and you're asked for consent for them to use cookies, that means they've thought about data protection laws, and you need to think about it too. Even if you're not collecting information from the people who use your site, Google probably is, and it's still your responsibility to tell them what information's being collected, how it's being collected, and what you or Google is going to do with it. If you don't know how to word this properly, you'll need to ask, you've guessed it, your lawyer. Also, you'll probably need a disclaimer. This means that people can't take you to court when they do something stupid or have bad luck and try to blame it on you. Let's say you've got a website giving travel tips. Even though your travel tips are great, somebody might go to one of those places you've mentioned and end up getting robbed. The disclaimer makes it clear that if this happens, it's their responsibility, not yours. Number 5. Use contracts. Whether someone's paying you to do a job for them or you're paying someone to do a job for you, contracts are going to be your best friend. It seems like a lot of effort of drafting and signing them, but if anything goes wrong, contracts are there to prove what you agreed on. And if disagreements come up, they'll show who's in the right and who's in the wrong. If your business provides a similar kind of service to different clients, have a draft contract you can use again and again with each client, perhaps with some modifications here and there. You can find templates on the internet, but to be really safe, have you guessed what we're going to say? Yes, get your lawyer to draft it for you. That's because your lawyer knows the specifics of your business way better than whoever wrote that draft contract on the internet. That includes the laws of your country or state. If a contract doesn't follow the laws where you are, then it isn't legally binding. In legalese, that means it ain't worth squat. Number 6. If you're employing people, get to grips with employment law. So you don't need to be a legal hotshot to run a business. That's your lawyer's job. But if you're going to employ people, it's well worth getting up to speed with employment law in your country, at least to a decent level. It's an area a lot of employers get into trouble with and get sued by employees because they just never bothered to read up about it. First, know how the law deals with the rights and obligations of employees. And those words, rights and obligations, are words that come up over and over again in legalese, but are pretty easy to understand. That's simply because the law is basically all about people's rights and obligations. A few important areas are things like health and safety measures, hiring and firing people, laws regarding overtime, and an area of employment law called vicarious liability. That's the area of law that decides if you can be taken to court if an employee gets injured while they're at work, even if you followed all of the health and safety procedures and it wasn't your fault. Make sure that all the rights and obligations are clearly stated in the employment contract. And yes, obviously you're going to need a contract. And yes, that's another job for your lawyer. Number 7. Know what to do if someone steals your work. So you've taken all the steps to protect your IP. What if someone still tries to use it without permission? Be prepared and know what to do from the start. First, politely ask them to stop using it. It's likely they did it in good faith. That's legalese for not wanting to cause harm or realizing they were doing anything wrong. If that fails, contact their web hosting service and file a takedown notice. This tells the provider they're hosting material that shouldn't be there. Hopefully that will work. If not, take it to the final stage. Threaten to sue them. Also, anytime you're explaining your business to somebody else outside the business, an investor, potential client, or a contractor, protect yourself with a non-disclosure agreement. That's a legal agreement that they won't use your ideas, and you can take them to court if they do. Number 8. If you're going into business with partners, define everybody's duties. So you've got the right group of people together to go into business with as partners, and you all get on great together. What could possibly go wrong? Well, if you haven't clearly defined answers to questions like, what exactly is everyone's role and what's expected of them? What percentage of the company does each partner own? How does everyone split the profits, and what are everyone's voting rights? Then the answer is a lot of stuff is almost certain to go wrong. And don't just talk about it and make a friendly agreement. Put it down on paper and make it legal. Points like these are covered in a document called Articles of Incorporation. That's the document that legally makes it a company. If you don't do it properly, there could be all kinds of disagreements between partners that will be impossible to fix. Number 9. Keep all of your paperwork in order. When you run a business, there's going to be lots of paperwork. Paperwork that tells you how much you've spent and how much you've made, which you will need for tax purposes. Paperwork that keeps track of your assets, including the documents related to your IP and the articles of incorporation that officially makes it a company. And of course, contracts with clients, suppliers, and anybody else. You'll need to file all of those in an orderly way and know exactly where to find them. If you don't, your best case scenario will be paying your lawyer or accountant more for the time they spend sorting through them. And a worst case scenario, getting fined or taken to court at some point down the line. Number 10. Be careful about what you say or write in public. Especially if you're a respected voice in your industry. Be responsible about the claims you make and don't let it expose yourself to people suing you because you've said something dumb. Making false claims about people in writing is called libel. When it's spoken, it's called slander, and both of them are types of defamation. And thanks to Facebook and Twitter, it is now easier than ever to get into trouble with defamation law. A case in point is one of Alux's favorite entrepreneurs, Elon Musk. Now, we do believe he's a visionary and a hugely inspiring business leader, but he could do himself a favor by being more careful about what he tweets. In the last couple of years, tweeting got him into a high-profile case of libel, and a tweet about Tesla's business activities landed him a $20 million fine. Use Elon's business practices as inspiration, not his tweeting habits. And with that, Aluxers, out of all the legal issues you have to worry about when you start out in business, which one do you think has the potential to cause you the biggest headache? Let us know in the comments. And for sticking with us until the end, a bonus of course, here it is. Don't let the legal worries stop you from going into business. Nobody said that going into business was going to be easy. If you're serious about what you want to do, you probably know that already. And yes, legal issues can be complex. And yes, they can cause you stress, but they shouldn't get in the way of all the great things you want to achieve in business. Learn how to deal with the legal side of things. Find a good lawyer. There is basic legal stuff you should know as an entrepreneur. You can learn along the way and make sure that you do. The rest you can leave it to your lawyer, so find a good one from the start. Deal with the legal side of things responsibly and cautiously, but don't let it get in the way of achieving your dreams. Thank you for spending some time with us, Aluxers. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpicked these videos, which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question on our website, alux.com. Thank you for being an Aluxer, and we'll see you back tomorrow.